Hi, Eileen Bayer, the fam here. Welcome to another installment in our series on epilepsy. In this series, we are going to be talking about if you have to stay on seizure medication all your life. What if you were still having seizures on your medication? Those are the two areas that we are going to cover today. So saying that, let's get this going. One question a lot of people that have seizures ask, will I have to stay on seizure medication the rest of my life? Well, in simple, that can be pretty much answered. Okay, so let's answer their question for them. If seizures go away, you may be able to come off seizure medication with your doctor's advice. If you have been seizure-free for 2 to 5 years, so in order to get off seizure medication, you have to be free from seizures for 2 to 5 years. And then once you had where you don't have seizures for that amount of time, the doctors may take you off your medication. There are a number of issues to think about before slowly stopping your seizure medications. For example, do you drive a car? And what is the risk of driving if you have another seizure? These are the questions you're going to need to ask yourself before you try to get off any seizure medication. Okay? So that's the first question you need to ask. Yourself, not your doctor. You need to ask it and be able to answer it yourself. Do you drive a car? And if you do, what is the risk of you having another seizure while you're driving the car? And if you can answer that first question of, okay, let's say, yes, I drive a car, and the risk of me having a seizure driving is like 1 in 1,000, then okay, maybe you should think about it. But be honest with your answers, because it's not, if you're behind the wheel and you have seizures because you stopped your medication, it's not just your life that's at risk, it's other people's lives and properties. So you really need to make sure you answer that honestly. What type of work do you do? Would you be at risk of injury coming off your medicine? What they're talking about is like if you work at a machine shop with like doing plastics or something, you know, any type of factory work where there's machines. If you got off your medication and you had a seizure at that type of job, you could be at serious risk of injuring yourself badly. So that's why, you know, you need to ask yourself all of these questions, not just one, but you have to ask yourself each one of these questions I'm going over and answering them, you know, very, very honestly and earnestly. Okay? Are you ready and willing to make changes in your medicines? If you can answer all of these questions honestly to where the risk is not there for driving or at a job, and you are willing to change, to make changes in your medicines, then maybe you can get off seizure medications, only with your doctor's advice though. I would not do it without your doctor's advice. Always do, with any medication, always get your doctor's advice first. Okay, the length of time a person is seizure-free before stopping his medicine depends on many issues. The longer the time a person is seizure-free on medications, the better chance they have of coming off medications. More than 50 out of 100 children outgrow their epilepsy. 20 years after the diagnosis, 75 out of 100 people will have been seizure-free for at least 5 years, although some may still need to take medication. People who have surgery and become may be able to come off seizure medication. Okay, so if you've had surgery and you were put on seizure medication, like for instance when my husband had his brain tumors that was causing him seizures, he had to be on Dilantin. Once they took out the 2 brain tumors, they waited like 6 months. I mean, they would have waited longer, but he no longer needed it because there was nothing there. His brain healed fine, and the medication, which is a Dilantin, and a Dilantin, if I'm not mistaken, looks like that one right there. But that was causing him to have more seizures because his body didn't need it. So the doctors took him off and he was fine. Some people may need to stay on their medications to prevent seizures from coming back, even after surgery. So there's 2 sides of the coins, and I think that's why with my husband they waited to make sure the seizures weren't going to come back. But what happened is with him, because his brain healed good after they removed the tumors, and thank God they weren't cancerous tumors, but they were still tumors. When they removed them, there was no scarring there to cause the electrical storms in the brain anymore. So that's why. Excuse me. What if I am still having seizures though, while taking seizure medications? What then? Well, if you continue to have seizures while taking seizure medications, you need to ask the following questions. Was your diagnosis correct? And what that means is, okay, there's many different reasons for people to have seizures. You may not be an epileptic and still have seizures. For instance, autistic children. A lot of autistics have seizures, but they're not epileptic. It's from their autism. Brain surgeries. It depends on what and, you know, why you were having them seizures. So that's the first question you need to ask if you're still having seizures while you're on medication. I will repeat that one just to make sure you know. Is your diagnosis correct? Sometimes people are diagnosed with seizures, but they may not be caused by electrical discharges of storms in the brain. If your diagnosis isn't clear, it's time to find out what's going on. Do you know what type of seizures you have? That's a very important one because there are different types of seizures. I'm probably gonna later on put epilepsy in its own category for a playlist because it is so long. But there are different types of seizures. I'm not going to go over them today, but you do need to know what type of seizures you have, and in order to find that out, you need to ask your doctor and write it down. This is what I have. The more information you have about your condition, the better it is for you. So don't go in there and, just say, hey, you need to know if you're, why you're on that medication. Is it because you are an epileptic? If you are an epileptic, what type of seizures do you have? Those are the two questions that you need to discuss with your doctor and let them inform you. Be informative about whatever you have. For an example, I have retinitis pigmentosa. When I first got diagnosed, I did research on it. Now, 99% of people that have retinitis pigmentosa, the short version of it is called RP, go blind within 5 to 10 years after they had it. They found out I had it when I was in high school. That's when they realized what it was, because it's not back then it wasn't common. And you have to remember that when we grew up, okay, I was born in 62, so when I was going to school, a lot of these things were not common. ADHD and ADD was not common. There was a lot of mental illnesses that did not have a label yet of what they were. Back when I went to school, it was just considered a learning disability. That's all it was classified as. There was nothing else beyond that. I remember in elementary school, I had to go through a special class, and they had cards and different type of tests we had to go through, and I was put in a special class for, I think, like an hour out of the school day. Well, that carried on to junior high. I had to go into a special class called individual guidance education. Which was special. It was at a more slower pace than normal. And then in high school, they didn't have IGE in high school. Instead, you had your guidance counselors, and I would be allowed to go in and do my work with the guidance counselor. After I'd been to the class, got my work assignment, and if there was something that the teacher thought that I could not do in the classroom, I would have to go to my guidance counselor and do the work there with her, and she would help me through it. Now, I've never collected for any of it, because like I said, back then they just called it a learning disability, and in that was autistic people, in other different things, but they did not, the only one that had the label back then was autism. Everybody else, they didn't have a label on what they were in there for. So you do need to know about your diagnosis, if it's correct, what type of seizures you're having, because some medicines do, they only work for specific type of seizures. So if you're having one type of seizure and you get medication for something else, no, it's not going to work. So you need to know and discuss that with your doctor. Okay, if you and your doctor don't know what type of seizures you have, there's a test called a video EEG telemetry. And what that does is that will record you having a seizure and determine its type. So nowadays I would think that's more of what they would do to know. Back then probably not, but now that's probably what they do, so the medications are more precise. This information will help the doctor choose the best medicine to use. Another thing, can you tolerate the medicine's side effects? some side effects on different medications are pretty strong. I've never been on a seizure medication. I don't remember what the side effect for Dilantin was, but I do remember that when you took Dilantin, you did have to have your blood checked. I think it was like every 3 months for the level, because it stays in your blood. And so that was an ongoing thing with that medicine. But I do know about different medicine side effects. Some of the side effects in some medications can be a lot worse than the illness itself. For an example, I had a real bad urinary tract and kidney infection. And the doctor that I was seeing for it at the time had prescribed me a sulfur medication. I've never questioned any medication from the doctors at all when I was given medication. I was taking them the way I was supposed to. Well, with this sulfur medication, the side effects of that was so bad for me, my system could not handle it. It made me deathly, and I mean deathly ill. It gave me a high fever of like 103. I couldn't keep food or liquids down. I had the diarrhea. It was severe. And I called that doctor back and told him I cannot handle this medication. It is making me deathly ill. It's giving me a high fever. I can't hold anything down. I can't keep liquids. I have the diarrhea. And he refused to take me off. So I stopped seeing him and I went to another doctor. And that doctor told me, no, completely stop. And he gave me another medication that the side effects weren't as bad, but it did the job. So yes, the side effects have a lot to do with it, because each of us handle things differently. So how we handle the side effects on the medication does mean a lot, because if you're given a certain medication for your seizures, but the side effects are really bad, you need to let your doctor know if you can't handle them, so he can either lower the dose or, change it to something else. Okay? So let's continue. Sometimes in medicine, side effects make it hard to take a drug at the right dose, which is what we were just talking about. People may feel too sleepy, confused, have memory problems, or feel uncoordinated or unsteady walking when the dose is raised. Other side effects may occur that don't agree with the person, but are not related to the dose of the medicine. And that's just your body's reaction to it, which is with me. I can take high doses, but of that sulfur medication, the sulfur does not agree with my body. Okay? Finding the right medicine to control seizures means finding one that also doesn't cause bothersome side effects. So there's a lot involved. Okay? Can you afford the medicine? Is it available? Many practical issues, such as the cost of medicine and if it's available, are the first things to consider before deciding if a drug works. A drug cannot work if you can't take it regularly. Do you know how to take the medicine, and can you take it on the schedule your doctor sets up? Medicines only work when they can be taken on a regular basis. Knowing if a person has had a good trial with the medicine depends on whether or not the person understands how to take it and was able to do it. You should see an epileptic specialist to evaluate your seizures and treatments if you have all of these 4 things. You have tried at least 2 different seizure medications that are the right kind for your seizure type. 2. If the seizure medications were tried for a long enough time at the right doses. 3. If you are able to take the medications regularly. And 4. If bothersome side effects limit your ability to stay on the medications. So those are the 4 things if you want to get off of your seizure medication, you have to consider. And to get off of seizure medication, like I said, the doctors in the states, most states, require you to be seizure-free for 2 to 5 years. I know this for a fact because when my husband had his brain tumors, and this is when we found out about them because we went to see a neurologist, and they did the MRI and they found the tumors. When he had the surgery, he could not get his driver's license back until he's had 2 years of being seizure-free, and the doctor's statement on that, stating that if he got behind the wheel of a car, the chances of his having a seizure would be, probably almost nothing, which at that time, because there was no more tumors, it was nothing. But these are like the state requirements, so it's not just the doctors. The states are going to require this. So remember, if you've been taking seizure medication and you want to get off of it, you have to be seizure-free for 2 to 5 years, says the state. DMV. In a lot of jobs, you would have to get a statement from the doctor stating it is safe for you to work without being on medication. And so there's a lot involved in that. I will be redoing my page so it's a lot better, because some of these mental illnesses are kind of long, like there's a lot of information on it that you need to know. So the longer ones I think I'm going to make individually in their own, and as like a subcategory under the mental illness, and then and just leave the smaller ones in there. That's only like 3 to 4 videos per, whatever the mental disability is about. And that's it for this until Wednesday, when I will be continuing with this series. Excuse me, let me get some water here. My throat's dry from talking. Okay, that's better. Don't forget, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time, I will give you my schedule before I leave. Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, I do upload on these videos on my mini mental health series. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3, I do networking streams. Saturdays, I do channel shout-outs, and Sundays is supposed to be YouTube how-tos, but I have not been able to get that going, because at the same time, I do have to work on my channel and getting it going and working on getting it done. So by the time I get everything done, it's past that time, so I haven't been able to do it. So I'll probably do that and then upload it Sunday. So that's what I'm probably going to do for that. Now, before I let you go, always remember what I say on every video because it is so important. That's why when you come to my channel, you see what you see on top. And you see my icon, which is my eye with the heart in it. Because this is so true and it is so needed. There is so much hatred out there. We don't need to hate on one another. We need to love on one another. Just think, the word you say can be, it's a lifeline. And what you say depends on what happens. You control the outcome. Now, if you are the type of person that's negative and always spewing out negative contents, one of these times that negative content stuff that's coming out of your mouth could be what turns somebody to taking their life. Or instead, you could bring them up, grab them, hold them tight, and say, I got you, we got this. Your life is much too valuable to let go. And you do this by your actions and your words. See, when we see with these eyes, this is what you see, just a shell. Okay? When you see with the heart, you go beyond the shell and you look deep inside that person. You get to know them for who they are, for what they are. And you accept that. And you love them for being them. Because each and every one of us were made differently. There's no two people on this earth alike. You may have a look-alike out there somewhere, but I can guarantee you there is nobody else on this earth that is exactly like you inside and out. We're all uniquely made. But we were made to be with other people. We're people needing people. That's the way we were created. You know, just your encouraging words is what counts. So please, always remember and try to practice it on a daily basis. Try to look at people from here, from the heart, instead of from the eyes. Remember, you're uniquely made, you matter to me, you are important, and I love you for you. So until we see each other again, I love you and I will see you all later. Have a great day.